experiment, blasting through a video without giving a damn about the background noises that you're going to hear anyway. JFK's weapon. Assertions that are made about it. Everything under the sun to excuse what we know as historical fact about what happened, or not. So here we go. It's called the Mannlicher Carcano, also listed as M91 38 bolt action rifle. 700 meters per second bullet, or 2,300 feet per second, over Mach 1, was used to take out elephants because it could. A 7.6 millimeter 160 grain or 10 gram round-nosed, fully copper-jacketed bullet fired, if it was the actual ammunition it was designed for, which you'd have to go look for a lot more harder these days, and not some stupid reload that gave it a bad reputation as a gun when it was in good condition. The ammo was designed to work with it was very effective, very accurate, very tight grouping. The average time of 10 test shooters that were just picked to be just random people, as well as, of all things, senators, was 5.64 seconds to fire 3 shots. Targets 175, 240, and 265 feet away. That's 53, 73, and 81 meters. On average, the rifles jammed after 6 rounds, because the magazine could only hold a certain number of rounds, and when it got towards the end, it would jam more often. Not on the first 3, or 4, which is what actually was done, if you want to, well, or not. Critics of the Warren Commission had claimed it was impossible to fire it in less than 2.3 seconds twice. So Robert Blakely and Gary Cornwall did it in less than 1.6 seconds with little or no prep. Other tests have been done since then, and you can literally just buy one of these things. But no, that was literally with that gun. It's not some off-the-wall test. It wasn't sandbagged. It wasn't prepped. It wasn't done for the reasons you talk about. And no, this isn't an infomercial where people can't pour milk. I'm talking about people, in some cases, who literally don't have any real knowledge of the weapons, or have knowledge of other weapons, and that's what their training is. Next, Harvey Oswald passed a Marine sharpshooter test 4 years before. There's no reason to assume that he couldn't have done any shooting with any other weapons since then, and also the idea that he couldn't possibly have fired the weapon at all before this, so he could figure out what to do with the sights not being perfect. That's a little stupid. The rifle couldn't be perfectly sighted using the side-mounted Ordnance Optics 4x18 scope, but a real test was done by having people fire it dry, just no testing. 3 bullets each. A cue ball-sized group at 300 feet, or 100 yards away. A little further away than shooting Kennedy. And 2 to 5 inches higher than they would try to shoot. Just high. Not to the right or left much. Now, what that meant was, if you were deliberately aiming for JFK's upper center back, you would hit something that would be a vital organ, which is the whole point of killing somebody. It's not to hit them in the head. It's to hit them. Where did the first bullet go through? And might take out a spinal column or the brain. At 45 feet, or 15 yards away, you would end up with a 2.5 inch high and 1 inch to the right grouping that were the size of a dime for all 3 shots. Just bench mount testing them. Yeah, so somebody who isn't done really long drawn-out shooting with that exact weapon would get it wrong on the first shot. Why would you assume, because you're making an infomercial out of him, that he wouldn't have just tried shooting the thing at a target? The downward slope on Dealey Plaza made his head appear to Oswald to be almost a stationary target with a slight movement, as his vehicle was moving at about 15 miles an hour average. Down and away at a low speed, or not a high speed. It would allow him to compensate pretty quickly and easily. He could have also sat there and practiced sighting on other cars. He was in an area that people don't generally look up. When was the last time you looked up in a mall to see what the ceiling tiles really look like? Bet you didn't notice that a lot of those malls have ceiling tiles that aren't really connected. It's called an invisible or false ceiling effect. The abbreviation B equals ball. This is the educational part of the video. We have to make this a multi-faceted thing. Full metal jacket cartridges, or cartridges with ball bullets, ball ammunition. This is military nomenclature because they wanted a distinctive word to put on the side of the box. It doesn't mean it's round ball ammunition. Not spherical. It just means it's encased in a harder metal jacket, except for the base. Could also be backronymed as being ballistic ammunition or something of that nature. The bullet that came out of the Mannlicher? Carcano Mannlicher. Just sounds like the kind of pro wrestler name you should make fun of. Too soon? No. This happened when I was extremely young. If I was even alive at the time, I don't even remember this stuff. I'm pushing 50. I don't think we need to be apologetic about making fun of the gun's name. It's a dumb name. Anyway, the thing's firing a bullet over Mach 1. It has a tight grouping about the size of the palm of your hand at a distance beyond where it was needed to hit. And this was not as tough an object as possible. When you see conspiracy theorists talking about JFK, they make it into some infomercial environment that you couldn't do any of this. But people who have actually gotten hold of the guns, you look it up by one name, but if you look it up by the other name, Mannlicher versus Carcano, if you look up Mannlicher, you can look at YouTube videos where they're shooting very accurately. Sort of like right after Paddock used the bump stock, all the videos showed how clumsy it is to shoot it, and how you could never get machine gun-like behavior out of it. When months before, in some cases on the same channel, they were talking up how absolutely massively effective it is, and I archived every fucking one of them and told them, don't bother erasing this. You have evidence against your next video. A lot of them retracted their statements or stopped doing this entirely, or just didn't want to discuss it. And all of them talked about how that was a way to get around the machine gun ban. 100% of them. Well, yeah, you can use a stick or just let it rock and roll in a frame or build a wooden box around a gun, but it was a conversion to make a machine gun out of a standard gun. Doesn't require belt feeding, and yes, if you used a bipod, it actually improved its ability to be used that way. In fact, it made it easier than you might think. You might even be able to go without that bump stock or slide stock. And everybody came up with other names for it, slide fire, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The mechanism is the same and the patent was the same. That's why they had an argument between two companies and settled out of court, because it was absolutely the same idea. This bullet is a really long, skinny bullet that is spun at a slightly higher, a higher twist rate, going down out of the barrel at 2,300 feet per second, and it was designed to have a lot of mass, but a very small cross-sectional area with a spin to force it to have very good ballistic efficiency. Sorry, I was thinking a different thing. Now, what is the point of this video? The first line of the video isn't going to be any of the data I just discussed. It'll be pause the video, get out a piece of paper and pen, and come up with an argument to disprove everything I've said. Because I'm going to say, this is me reading Wikipedia. Now the reason I'm doing that is Wikipedia's articles not about the JFK shooting, but about the assassination rifle, bullet materials in general, full metal jacket bullets, and I'm not even going to include a link to that particular gun. You'll look it up yourself, are neutral, which means they haven't been attacked by conspiracy theorists that need to make it into you can't pour milk. Soy boys. Intellectual soy boyism. Everything has to be impossible suddenly if you need it to be. That kind of argumentum is bullshit. Harvey Oswald was a trained killer. Military trained killer. He succeeded in killing somebody with a weapon that has been used repeatedly in history for shooting and killing people. It was an Italian-made, I think it's an Italian-made gun. It's used a lot. It was very effective. It's not the best gun on the planet. Then again, neither is an AR-15, and that'll start some arguments. If you say an AR-15 isn't perfect. I think a .22 caliber rifle that can shoot CB, BB, short, long, and magnum. The magnum part's hard to get. .22 caliber bullets is the best gun on the planet. Why? Because I can take junk, cheap ammunition and throw it downrange. I can also swap barrels without having to break any laws and put the longest barrel on a gun I can get. Because that's what I want. Because I want to be able to put something on a target at a really long distance with a scope with a lot of time to breathe. But this thing, you could probably, if you really wanted to, ignore the damn continually and improperly mounted scope that was off by how many inches at 300 feet? 4 or 5? Up? It hit high? So just aim at the lowest visible part of the person's anatomy, which would be a broader target, and aim literally there. He went to some place and fired it. He used the scope to figure out where the bullets were hitting. Didn't want to shim it, didn't care. Could visually compensate just like anybody else can. If you really need a crosshair to know where the bullet's going to go, then you would never be good with using iron sights. And again, I'm used to bench mounting these things and seeing where the bullets go, and then adjusting the damn scope. That one required shims. The modern ones, you just turn a couple of knobs, literally 2 knobs, to push the crosshair array arrangement and the optics the right way. None of this was impossible, and acknowledging that it wasn't impossible and that some random lawyer was able to fire the damn thing and get a better rate than everybody claimed when they were criticizing the Warren Commission. The Warren Commission's complete shit. Now we can do something else, and I made this comment in another video. Screw the Warren Commission, use your own brain. You can look this up. For weeks and weeks after Las Vegas, in a very similar situation, almost identical, high spot shooting down at target-rich environment. Everybody lied about their own knowledge about guns because they did not want the narrative that was being fed to them to be true when it was. And being grown-ups, time to put on the big boy pants and the big lady pants. No more twerking butt. Everyone needs to start trying to be credible instead of posting incredible statements. Today I saw someone say the scope was literally broken. That's horseshit. Of course it wasn't broken. The sights were off again. The 5 inches at 300 feet. Yeah, it's 100% off from a palm-sized target area. This is the grouping of 3 shots. So you aim here and hit here or here. Where did the bullet hit? Back and to the left or up and to the right? You look it up. Where did the first bullet go through Kennedy? Where was he aiming? There is a JFK shooting simulator you can still download. I'm not going to give the name of it, but you can look it up. And it's designed to try to prove that you couldn't shoot anybody. And it was made by some really annoying little hipster kind of person, in my opinion. But you can still download the binary. And it's a throw on your computer program. And it has the ability, if you want to, you can go ahead and figure out the controls. And I'll do a video on it if somebody asks nice, to where you can go around and look around a really reasonably good 3D model of the area to look at all the possible spots, even if it's trying to keep you from going to them to get a sight view. But you can do it. You can pause the video or pause the playback where he was at each point. It's reasonably well done. And you can decide from that distance. You can simulate this someplace out in the field. Are you willing to say that you're such a shit shot that you can't use a gun that does a good cluster at 300 feet? That's a shit cluster, actually. It's really horrible. But it can hit a dime-sized area at 45 feet, and at 100 yards, it can hit something the size of the palm of your hand. If you aim for the chin, you hit the eye socket. This is not something that would be impossible. This is highly likely. Unless you wish to claim suddenly, all of you gun proponents, that you're literally the biggest wuss with a gun on the face of this earth. I think this is a dead subject. Prove me wrong in the comments below. I'll be sipping my coffee.